In this video, we will talk about the gut-brain axis. The gut-brain axis refers to the bidirectional communication between these two organs that is mediated by the vagus nerve, which is made up of bundles of neurons. The neurons that go from the brain to the gut are known as efferent neurons, and those that go from the gut to the brain as afferent neurons. Neurons communicate with each other using chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. When one neuron wants to transmit information to the next, it produces and releases them. The enteric nervous system and the central nervous system share neurotransmitters, which greatly facilitates communication between the gut and the brain. The communication that goes from the brain to the gut is the best known. We are all aware that stress and emotions such as fear, anger, or falling in love induce changes in our gastrointestinal function. And this happens because the brain controls the enteric nervous system, which in turn controls all the functions of the gut. These are many and varied, since the gut is at the same time a digestive, endocrine, immune, and microbial organ. The communication that we just mentioned, and which goes from the brain to the gut, despite being the best known, accounts for only 10% of all communication between these two organs. Communication in the opposite direction, that is, the one that goes from the gut to the brain, is less well understood, although we are all aware of the existence of sensations or visceral decisions that we call intuition. In the gut, due to its function as a digestive organ, there is food. Since it is an endocrine organ, there are hormones. Because it is also an immune organ, there are inflammatory mediators such as cytokines. And because it is a microbial organ, there are substances produced by bacteria such as vitamins and short-chain fatty acids. All of these products can influence the production of neurotransmitters by the enteric nervous system, and because both the brain and the enteric nervous system share neurotransmitters such as serotonin, they can also influence the information that reaches the brain. The bacteria of the gut microbiota can also produce neurotransmitters, which can reach the brain if they pass into the blood. The communication that goes from the gut to the brain, despite being the less well understood, represents 90% of the total communication between these two organs. This communication seems to significantly influence our subconscious and in particular our perception of stress, emotions, pain, and fatigue. Studies in mice have shown that if the microbiota of two strains of mice that differ in their level of aggression are switched, the less aggressive mice that receive the microbiota from aggressive mice become more aggressive, while the aggressive mice that receive the microbiota from less aggressive mice show decreased aggressiveness. These data indicate that the gut microbiota has an important influence on behavior. There are also very interesting studies in humans, such as one by Dr. Kirsten Tillish, in which healthy women with no gastrointestinal symptoms or psychiatric problems were analyzed and subjected to an emotional recognition task, in which the women reacted to unpleasant faces while undergoing functional magnetic resonance imaging of the brain. Half of the women then received probiotics for 4 weeks, and the other half received nothing. After 4 weeks, the emotional recognition task was repeated, and it was observed that the women who had not received probiotics responded the same as 4 weeks before, while those who had received probiotics and had probably modified their intestinal microbiota had much better responses, as shown by functional magnetic resonance imaging. This study supports an effect of the intestinal microbiota on our subconscious. In people affected by multiple sclerosis, the following has been described: frequent gastrointestinal disorders with inflammation and therefore higher amounts of cytokines in the intestine, and also dysbiosis in the gut microbiota, that is, an alteration in the frequency of certain gut bacteria that can change the amount of vitamins, short-chain fatty acids, as well as neurotransmitters produced by these bacteria. These alterations at the intestinal level can affect the production of neurotransmitters in the enteric nervous system and the information that reaches the brain, and therefore the communication between gut and brain. An altered communication between these two organs can influence the subconscious of people affected by multiple sclerosis and alter their perception of stress, emotions, pain, and fatigue.